Hello and welcome back. For those who have just joined us, this is the Personal Development Stream. I'm delighted to welcome our next speaker, who is the wonderful Kathryn Eastwood, who will be joining us to talk about incorporating intentionality with aspiration and inviting a special guest to join her on stage. Kathryn is Director of Income and Employer Partnerships at the EY Foundation. Kathryn sits on the leadership team at the Foundation, a social mobility charity committed to enhancing the employability and earnings potential of younger people from lower income backgrounds. Kathryn works with business leaders to design social impact partnerships and support young people, while also aligning the longer term business objectives around talent, DE&I and future skills. Bear with me. Kathryn also hosts the EY's Foundation's podcast called Careers Unlocked, which brings industry experts together with youth voices to discuss a range of topics. She began her career in political consultancy, working across transport, energy and infrastructure sectors. Welcome to the stage, Kathryn. Okay, and joining her in this conversation, we have special guest Ife Obasa. Ife was recently appointed to the EY Foundation's Youth Advisory Board and has served as an interreligious Commonwealth Youth Ambassador for the Commonwealth Jewish Council and has contributed to as a council member of the British Youth Council. Lots of councils in that. Ife is a very sought-after speaker, educational consultant, and an authentic leader on a mission to redefine the future of the workplace and recharacterise the face of the young decision-makers globally. Having delivered impactful talks at events such as YMS Conference, LDN, the Institute of Student Employers Conference, and the Labour Party Conference, her powerful and transformative keynotes leave audiences feeling inspired. Powerless magazine also recognised Ife as the top 150 UK leaders in 2022. In addition, Ife is a fourth-year law student at the University of Southampton. So, busy lady. Welcome to the stage, Ife. Okay, I'm going to be passing over to these lovely ladies to carry on the conversation.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Sheena, and hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. We've got a good session, I hope, ahead for you. But before we get into that today, I just want to say that before Ife got here today, she actually submitted her dissertation on the politicisation of the judiciary. So I think it's safe to say that whatever we do after this is probably going to be a walk in the park compared to that. So just a round of applause. Congratulations to Ife. All right, so let's get into the session. Today, we are going to be asking just how important it is to be intentional when it comes to career planning. And I'm sure, like me, many of you have seen interviews with business leaders and with people that you really admire. And when asked how they achieved the success that they did or how they got to that place that they are today, they say something along the lines of, I've got no idea how I ended up here. I just stumbled into it. It was all luck and good timing. And firstly, that's just relatively unhelpful if you're looking to them for inspiration for your 5-year plan. Also, sometimes I wonder, is that really true? Is that actually what happened? And also, if it is true, is that the kind of thing we should all be doing? Should we just be going with the flow and seeing where we get? So, as two women at different stages of our careers, so Ife obviously just about to start out and me about 15 years in, we are going to be reflecting on our own ideas and experiences and really asking you to do the same. And hopefully at the end of this session, we're going to leave you with some practical takeaways to think about your own career, but also some takeaways to help you think about how you can help others in their career as well. So we're going to begin with the theme of intentionality in your career. But before we get started, I want to ask you all something. So I'd like a show of hands from the audience of everybody who is currently in the career that they thought they would be in when they were 15 years old. All right, so we've got maybe 3 people. Brilliant. Okay. Fantastic. To be honest, it's quite a punchy question that we just casually go around asking toddlers, what do you want to be when you grow up? Essentially thinking that they might know how they're going to spend about 80,000 hours of their adult lives. So it's good to know that we're all in safe hands here. Ife, right, over to you. Do you have a dream job or a career master plan?
Wow, big question. And hello, everybody. Do I have a dream job? I would have said a few years ago, yes. Now, not so much. I'm a law student and the plan is to become a solicitor. But I think over the last year and a half, 2 years, having really invested in my brand, I've realized there's so many opportunities out there. And so I wouldn't say I have a dream plan, but in terms of career, I'm open to opportunities. I've said I want to practice law for a bit. I also want to set up a business, and maybe in the future we'll see, and you've heard it here first, I might go into politics. So there's so many things that I'm thinking, but in terms of having a dream aspiration, I wouldn't say I have one, but in terms of career, I am thinking law and other areas. And I think the beauty of that is because I've built so many different streams of interest, I'm able to see myself in different industries.
Okay, brilliant. So we've got a few, I guess, foundational blocks of a plan there. Something I always wonder is we can have an idea of a plan of where we want to go, but we don't always think about the assumptions that underpin that plan. So if I think back to 4 years ago, I don't think any of us would have expected what we went through with regards to the pandemic and how that turned everything for pretty much everybody upside down, at least temporarily. So in terms of those assumptions, have you stopped to think about, in this ever-changing world of work, the assumptions that your current loose plans are based upon?
Yes. So I am a fourth-year law student, meaning that I took a year out to go on placement. I was working as a paralegal, then I finished as a court usher. So I had a really wide range of experience. And I think that placement opened up my eyes to remote working, to working hybrid, to potentially even working abroad. So I think some of the values, some of the ideas I have that underpin my career motivations are things like working in London. I absolutely love living in London, so that's a must. But also flexibility, the remote working. I enjoyed the fact that I could work from home, could go into the office as well, but there was that flexibility there. And so those are things that I think about when I am thinking about future career. What am I looking for? Flexibility. Is there any scope for potential international travel? And how challenging is the work? I'd definitely say my placement year was able to frame my mind in that way. And those are things that I look for now when I'm looking for jobs.
Okay, brilliant. Right, so we've talked about the plan, we've interrogated the assumptions a little bit. So if we now think about some of those practical ways that we could be more intentional in terms of thinking about career strategy and career planning, what actions have you taken to date to be intentional about your future career?
Networking. I absolutely love networking, and I'm sure everyone here as well understands the importance of networking. I live on LinkedIn, so if anybody wants to check me on LinkedIn, you'll see I'm on LinkedIn all the time. But I think networking has really positioned me to meet people who I probably wouldn't have met if I didn't put myself out there. And that's definitely a way that you can leverage opportunities, find opportunities, is through networking. And then also, I think as well, I have this mindset that embrace risk. I very much like to take a risk and see, does it pay off, does it not? And weigh it up. But I'd say the networking aspect has really helped me in terms of meeting people that I probably wouldn't have met if I didn't take the opportunity or the chance to go for an event or reach out to someone on LinkedIn. Those are some of my ways, yeah.
And what about things like, do you have clear goals that you've written down, or do you have a mentor? Any other really practical actions you've taken?
Well, only recently actually, I've decided to start living the year in quarters. So 4 quarters in a year, I decide to live it as though each quarter is the year.
Right.
So I set some goals for the quarter and give myself 90 days to try as much as possible to execute them.
Right.
So those are ways that I'm able to, quote unquote, apply my goals. But then also as well, I would definitely say I really do embrace this possibilitarian, if that's a word, mindset that, all things are possible if you put your mind to it. So I think that with my drive, to do well, my drive to be ambitious, coupled with how I live each quarter, I think has really helped, yeah.
I absolutely love that, the 90 days.
90 days.
You're like a woman on a mission. I love it. But you're right. I think it really can be as simple as writing down your goals and being so specific and holding yourself to account for things that you want to achieve. And I'd imagine that all of us here today in our working lives, we all make project plans of things that we have to deliver across our own teams. And those plans will have timelines, they'll have KPIs, they'll have people assigned to making different things happen. But actually, how often do we apply that same lens or that same level of rigor to our own career as if it was a project? How often do we give ourselves 30 minutes to check in on what it is we want to do and to check back in again? In terms of the practical things, I got thinking myself before this session, and you've said it yourself, networking. Some of you, I'm sure many of you might be familiar with this concept, but I only heard it recently, and it's the one of the personal boardroom. And it's based on a book by King and Young, I believe, and it's the idea that you look around in your own life and you think about the people in your network that already exist that you can leverage in your personal boardroom. And there's 12 different roles, and they are things like the connector, the sponsor, the challenger. And these do not all have to be C-suite executives that you all just happen to know. It could be your brother, your PT, your good friend, but really thinking about who is in that boardroom for me. And if I know who they are, how often do I call up my challenger and get them to hold me to account for something? Or if I need a foot in the door somewhere, how often do I reach out to my connector? And what I found really useful as well is when I was thinking about my personal boardroom, you see the gaps and you see the areas that actually I don't have anybody in that corner, and I really, if I want to achieve XYZ, I need to find somebody in that corner. Or actually I've got 6 people in this box and I'm not really using any of them at all to my advantage. So I personally found that one really interesting. So that was one little practical thing for me, but something else I want to move on to in a bit more depth, and you mentioned it earlier. And this is something that, I may be wrong, but I feel like your generation does slightly better than me in a way, but it's this idea of building your personal brand. Talk us through that. How important do you think it is to have a personal brand and to be intentional about what that is, both online and in real life?
Yeah, I think I'll start backwards and start with the intentionality of building a personal brand, then go into a personal brand. A personal brand, when I think about it, is like a portfolio or a profile that speaks about who you are. And when you're creating a personal brand, you really have to be intentional about what you want others to see when they think of you. So a lot of the times when people will reach out to me on LinkedIn and they will talk about my profile, one of the first things they'll say is, oh, we see that you are passionate about empowering young people, and everything you do focuses on that. And those are the things I've taken time to think about, that when people think of Ife Obasa, or when they think about the work that I do, those are some of the attributes that I want attached to it. So in terms of the intentionality, before building any personal brand, you want to think about how you want people to think about you, how you would like to be addressed. And in terms of building one, I would definitely say I have seen a lot more Gen Zs, if we want to call ourselves that, on LinkedIn who have absolutely aced the game of personal brand. And I also know mentors of mine who are much older than me who took time to sit down with me and explain what a personal brand is. And I would definitely say, as someone who has taken time to create her personal brand, it opens you up for opportunities. It, appears professional, but more importantly as well, it gives you a unique edge. Outside of just being a law student, you've probably heard from my bio, I also do a lot of talks, and the talks range from going into schools to empower young people to, speaking about intergenerational collaboration. So it really does range. But having built my brand, having built a website and all the different things that I have, it allows me to position myself in a way that I can, talk on topics that are of interest. And words that we use nowadays, like thought leaders, that's also another way you can become a thought leader, by having a personal brand. So I would say, as someone who has taken time to be intentional with building her brand, any advice I'd give to anyone in the room is think about how you want people to address you. Think about the attributes you have, or, the things you're doing currently at the moment that you would like others around you to know you by. And those are some of the ways you can incorporate that into a personal brand. But I think sometimes we make these things bigger than they are, or make them bigger than they're meant to be. Personal brand, in my opinion, is a portfolio or a profile of someone. And it really just provides a unique edge to who that person is.
Yeah, that's great advice. And actually, maybe, you've talked about LinkedIn and online, and that can be quite daunting, I think, for some people. I love what you said about just making it, being around what you want people to see you as or think of you as. We could even try that in our own office as well.
Yeah.
Like what person do you want to be in your team or in the office? So we can all get practice in that. Thank you. Okay, so we have talked quite a bit about intentionality. I wonder if we change the concept slightly, and instead of thinking about having this really grand fixed master plan, we think about the non-negotiables that we want in our career. And I think for me, in a way, those are things that will definitely keep changing from time to time and year on year, but it's so important to keep checking in with yourself and what they are. So you mentioned a couple of things earlier, but I'm going to ask you firstly, from your own personal point of view, what are the must-have things, the absolute non-negotiables in your career? And then secondly, if you wouldn't mind speaking on behalf of the entirety of Gen Z,
Wow.
what do you think, because that's fair, isn't it? What do you think that the must-haves are for your peers coming into their careers?
Okay, I think I confused them, and I will say it's a big task to speak on, behalf of a generation, but if you notice the trend now, as each generation is rising, what Gen Z really want are companies, employers that mean what they say. So if you pledge to something, it's actually following through with that. And Gen Z are not afraid to speak up anymore. They're a lot more bold and empowered to, take up a cause and, go all the way with it. So I think a non-negotiable for myself, and also links with Gen Z, is being at a place or at a workplace that means what they say. If they're pledging to something, they mean it.
Yeah.
And I'd prefer being somewhere where you've pledged to few things because you actually believe in it, as opposed to pledging in it because it looks right. Flexibility is also something else that myself and other members of Gen Z as well would definitely like, because now there is a trend where a lot more Gen Z and millennials have side hustles. So they're doing a 9 to 5, they're working in employment, but they also have a business they're running on the side, or they're freelancing. And that's something that's really important to me as well, that having, taken up some of the side hustles I'm doing, wherever I work, I'd like to be supportive of that. And that flexibility does help. Another thing that I myself value, and other Gen Z's value, is personal development. Do the company value investing in their younger employees? Have they got personal development programs? Is there any scope for, progression? How are they investing in the skills of their younger employees? So those are some of the non-negotiables I have, and they're also non-negotiables that I know other people around me can identify with.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I think you did a great job of speaking on behalf of the entire generation. It is really interesting that you say that, and I think it all comes back to those values, isn't it? And really thinking, just getting so real about what you actually want. I think we can all get really flattered into applying for promotions that actually we don't want. Maybe the job title sounds great, but the actual job itself isn't what we were good at, and like you said, being okay with the fact that flexibility in a role is absolutely key. So again, it's really just giving yourself that time and space to get to know exactly what it is that you really want. Okay, so we're going to turn to the other side of things. We looked at intentionality. Now I want to look at opportunism. I read the other day actually something quite fitting, that flexibility alone is not a great strategy, but a lack of it can ruin one, which I thought was really interesting. But in terms of applying this to careers, how can you embrace an opportunistic mindset, or how do you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, when we think of an opportunistic mindset, it's someone who seizes opportunities, that's able to embrace change. And for myself, I've always just positioned myself mentally that be open to whatever comes. I do have standards, but be open to whatever comes. I'm adaptable, and I've built a very resilient mindset. I think with some of the experiences I've had growing up and facing things like rejection that we all go through, I've been able to train my mind that, there is nothing that I can't do unless I put my mind to, one. But two as well, that if something doesn't go the way I planned, how can I learn from it, take stock and learn? And I think that all helps with this mindset and being adaptable, being open to change and chasing opportunities, being proactive. I really believe in creating my own table. If I don't see something there for myself, why don't I go out and, create the opportunity for myself? And in the same way, I'm also helping other people to access those opportunities. So I'd say proactive about looking for opportunities, being adaptable, building resilient mindset. Those are some of the ways I've been able to embrace opportunities and that mindset.
Yeah, brilliant. There's something about just being ready for when they come along, isn't it?
Exactly.
So some of the things you talked about before are almost preparation. It sounds slightly counterintuitive, but preparing to be opportunistic is quite necessary too. And then trusting yourself, like you said, and the more you go through and being open to that failure and having failed several times before and realising actually it's really useful as a learning curve too. I think one thing I'd like to pull out in terms of opportunism is something right back to what I said at the beginning, that you do hear people saying, oh, I just stumbled into the role and it was luck, it was good timing. Let's be clear, opportunity is not equal, and not everybody can just stumble upon the same access or the same good timing or the same luck. And Sheena mentioned in my bio, I work for the EY Foundation, and everything we do helps young people from low income and underrepresented backgrounds access career opportunities that they wouldn't otherwise do. And, we provide paid skills training and mentoring and professional networks. But I do often see that sometimes intentionality isn't enough, and we definitely can't always rely on opportunity and luck. So something I would really encourage you all to do as business leaders in different fields and having roles of responsibility is always think about, is your organisation, is your team open to ensuring that it is accessible to everybody who mightn't be able to just get as lucky as some others have. Okay, I want to wrap up and open to any questions that we might have, but we did say at the beginning that we'd, leave with a few practical tips. So we've talked about different things, so maybe you could reflect a bit later today or on the journey home this evening about your own career must-haves. Like, when did you last check in on them? And do you know what they are? And are they the same today as they were 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 weeks ago? Who is in your personal boardroom? Do you have one? And if there are people in it, are you using them? Are you reaching out to them? Or do you need to fill a few of those boxes up? When did you last really put time aside to apply that lens to your own career, that you give to your day-to-day job, the same rigor and intellect and energy and effort that you give your company and your organisation and your teams? When did you last give that to yourself, thinking about your own career as a project? And is there action that you can take to ensure that other young people coming in don't have to rely on good timing and luck? So that's my question to all of you. I'm going to leave it there. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much, Ife.